Don't pull money out of your 401k. That means protecting your savings account. That means being persistent until you're free of that debt. I know it doesn't happen overnight, but if you're consistent with your actions, you will see the result that you want.
My wife, Nicole, and I have had our fair share of disagreements around money. And those disagreements have shifted over the years, too. Too much saving, too little saving, too much spending, too little spending. All of the different categories, right? And through the years, even though we don't always agree, we both agree that having different viewpoints and perspectives is a positive for our relationship. So with that theme in mind, I've invited a power couple who have been married for over 25 years, and they happen to be financial educators as well. So it's a good pairing. Chris and Ericka Young are our guests today. Chris and Ericka have successfully become millionaires, helped one daughter graduate from college debt-free, and the other one is on the way. They also host a podcast called For Better and Worth that shows couples how to have a healthy net worth and a happy, lasting relationship. Welcome to the show, Chris and Ericka.
Thanks for having us. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, very excited about it, Andy.
Absolutely. It's great to see you virtually. I know we just saw each other in person recently, which was great as well. It's great to talk to you either way. So let's talk about this. Do you believe it's okay for couples to disagree about money? And if so, why?
That's a good question. And
I'm laughing already, Andy.
Good, because that's what we're trying to do. We want to have some fun with this topic.
That's right. Well, we're going to disagree anyway, so you might as well embrace it, right? I just feel like we're never going to agree on every single thing. So let's figure out how to make it work for us instead of making it a drawback, right?
I feel like if we're both saying the same thing and doing the same thing, then somebody's unnecessary.
And it's not me.
Definitely not me, right? Well, but Chris, I'll ask you. Maybe this is maybe more of a male thing. Why do we want to be right? I guess male or female. Like, why do we want to be right? Why do we not want to disagree? Why do we want our spouses to agree with us all the time? Is that just something innate in humans?
It's innate in men, Andy. I'll just say that. But we'll let him talk.
We're off to a fast start, Andy. So
we sure are, man. How are we getting teamed up on? There's two of us and one of her. I don't get it.
We got to turn the tables, man. But I think everybody has their point of view. Everybody sees things the way they see them. I know I'm guilty of this. Is that if you can't see it the way I'm seeing it because it's most logical, then why wouldn't you? And so I oftentimes try and win Ericka over to my side of the argument and lay out the facts and lay out the logic and the reason. But I think we all try and do that. And it's not necessarily, good or bad, but I think it's one of those things where we always feel like our way is the best way or our thought process is the best way. So I think that's why we end up not wanting to disagree, because you get to a pattern where it's more smooth sailing if you can get somebody on your side. So then you don't have to try and woo them over.
Yeah. I think also that we are going to have bumps in the road, but it's the end goal we're going for. It's not necessarily that the journey itself has to be a certain way. It can be multiple paths to the same destination. And I think we can get caught up in the weeds trying to make sure that the journey to get there is exactly the way we want it to be. And I think we have to disconnect ourselves from having it our way, getting there, and knowing that we're on the same page about the final destination or whatever that goal is that you're trying to reach. And we can mince words over, the process all day long, but that's unhelpful if really we're ultimately either trying to get out of debt or get to a savings level, or in our case right now, remodel our home. I mean, the process might be different. It might look different, but I think, the end goal is that we're going to just have a beautiful kitchen, right?
I love it. It's funny because it can be the lack of money that can cause disagreements, and it can also be the presence or the surplus of money in your lives post debt freedom or post these goals that you've done, where disagreements can happen as well. Is that right?
I would say so, because we've talked, and I feel like I've worked really hard and Ericka's worked really hard. And I think we all start to adopt this mentality that, well, I can do what I want. I've earned it. You know, I can go out and, spend how I want to spend because we don't have debt and we don't have those limitations. But I will say this, here's where I've seen the benefit in us arguing, or not so much arguing, but disagreeing. It allows you to see both sides. And sometimes, I tend to go fast because I'm on steps 6, 7, and 8, and Ericka is back on steps 1, 2, and 3. But because she goes slower and I go fast, it makes me slow down. And sometimes it makes her speed up. But it gets us to a point where we meet in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I slow down, it makes me stop and evaluate sometimes. And when she speeds up, it makes her see some of the bigger pictures, some of the broader context of things. So that's one area where I definitely can say that disagreeing has helped us.
Yeah, actually, it helps us to grow, and then it helps us to understand one another better and appreciate the fact that we're different. So I just think that we take this approach that it has to be agreement, and I prefer to use the term alignment. Like we are aligned that we want to get somewhere, or we're aligned that we want to see this end result. And how we do that might turn out differently. Like he calculates money differently, and I have to pause and say, let him calculate it that way. It's totally fine, instead of trying to control the thing because I'm the budget woman, right? Like I have to disconnect from his process and say, all right, he got to that conclusion himself, and that's totally fine. That's how he needs to see it, and that
That's
works.
because I use regular math, Andy. Ericka uses fuzzy math.
No, 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 no. My right is my see, my right. My right is always right. My way is always right. It's engineering math. This is the way of the world. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you can't deny that U of M engineering education, can you? I mean,
Thank you very much, Angie Hill. Thank you very
I
much.
love it. Well, maybe you guys have an example for us as a couple, because it's always nice to peer into other couples' lives and see how things are really going. Talk to us about a time where you guys maybe had a disagreement on some financial decision you guys were making, but that disagreement or that fight, whatever you want to call it, ultimately led to where you guys wanted to go in alignment.
Oh man.
Do you
I,
have one?
I think the most pertinent example is literally these renovations that we're undergoing right now.
Yeah.
Because we decided that we were going to stay in our home versus move. And that was the wise thing to do because we're not going to incur debt. We didn't want to deplete our savings and buy another house. So we said we're going to renovate. And we started out, we were going to do one project or another project this year. Then we said, no, we're going to do both projects. And then we started running the numbers.
And it's double the cost when you do both.
and there's project creep, scope creep, and so you got to account for that because it's never what you budget for. It's always a little beyond that. And so we finally said, okay, wait a minute, let's just do one. And so we started looking at it because I was like, well, if we're going to mess the house up, let's just do it all at once. Let's just tear it up and it'll all be beautiful at the end. And then, when I started to slow down, I was like, well, wait a minute, this seems like a lot of money because we didn't want our savings to go below a certain level. And once we really started to sit down and talk about it, we were able to land on do one project.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, I was frustrated because, like I said, I've already gone through the process. I put my project management hat on and I was like, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And Ericka's like, well, hold on.
Slow down.
Hold on. Let me get through steps 1, 2, and 3.
I'm the
like
turtle.
literally. And so it created some contention, between the two of us. But I think by knowing that at the end of the day, we wanted a completed project that was beautiful, that we would both be happy with, it forced us to stop and really have some conversation about what we would do, how we would do it. And because we were doing one project versus the other, we said, okay, we won't sacrifice. We can, let some of the scope creep into there and we could do some higher level things with, fixtures or lights or whatever. And that made her happy. And then she found, lesser cost things and that made me happy.
And I think it took, we probably disagreed for 2 months. We probably were not necessarily on the same page with that for a couple months. And then the numbers really spoke. And then where I think we really found alignment was we said, all right, so if this is the end result we're looking for in this particular project, will we be happy? Will we be satisfied with the end result? And we're like, yes. So now let's figure out how to pursue that. And I think we've both made, a little couple compromises here and there, and we've both allowed a little extra spending here and there, but we're pleased with the phases we're in right now, I would say. We'll put it that way.
I think that's great. And you guys used a really good example. What I kept hearing throughout that was that you made time for additional communication. Talk about how that is maybe the special sauce, because when you're doing busy things like being married, having jobs, running your own business, going to work, raising kids, doing home remodel, time starts to crunch down. So talk about how you guys make time for those conversations, or how you'd suggest that to couples.
I think it's funny because people think it's cliche when you say you got to have good communication. I work, a corporate job, and I'm very busy. I travel, I'm on lots of calls, and like literally we have to schedule time with each other sometimes, because if I'm not gone, or I'm not on some call or something, it's like, okay, well, what does your schedule look like? And so we'll put stuff on the schedule. But it really isn't cliche, because if we didn't make room for those conversations, then she could walk away, with some level of resentment towards me, or I could walk away with a level of frustration towards her. And so what we've done is we've said, okay, it's important that we stop to hear the other person. And that's really where I think people go wrong, is that they don't give space to hear what the other person is saying. And let's be honest, everybody just wants to be heard. And if you can be heard, and then not only hear them, but listen to what they're saying, then you can get some meaningful compromise that can come out of that. But
Yeah. And
what
and
do
I
you think?
I would say being intentional. I mean, there have been times when Chris has actually said to me, "Let's go get coffee so that we can get out of the house, not have the dog distracting us, not have the laundry or the dishes, just let's go have a money meeting intentionally over coffee." And we've done that several times to just escape our space and focus. And so, I definitely tell people maybe it's just 15 minutes once a week, maybe it's just
Hmm.
an hour, on a Saturday morning to, talk about some heavy decisions, or maybe it's a drive, when we're going to pick up our daughter from IU, for instance, or I mean, and you have that dedicated time. I think just being intentional about that time and knowing specifically what you're going to talk about. Because I think the other thing is we can get to that time and then not know why we're there. Right. And so let's also be intentional with the content of the time, because otherwise you'll have a meeting and you'll not know what was said.
That's true. You tend to come with an agenda
I
to the
do.
meeting. If it's a short meeting, Ericka has an agenda. If it's a
Hmm.
long meeting, Ericka has an agenda.
This is true. This is true.
So
I will admit.
There's my engineer friend again. There you
There it
go.
is. Steps 1, 2. Let's go.
I
Yes.
think it's funny. She's an engineer. I'm an MBA, and I see the big picture and strategy, and she's into the tactics and the process. So
It works well.
yeah,
I was going to say, I could see how this wealthy family came together. This is very nice.
We
This
were
is
not
great.
always wealthy, but we learned how to work it out,
I
on a
hear you.
on a
Yeah, and
yearly basis.
if you want to hear more of the background too, I'm going to share the session that Ericka and I had a few years ago, where we talked a little bit more about their money background, how they worked through that debt, and eventually made their way to a millionaire family, which is incredible. There's somebody listening right now, and they're saying, "Wow, that's incredible. That's like the dream, to be able to have great conversation with my spouse, build our wealth to comfortable millionaire status, and help our kids graduate college debt free." They're listening, they're inspired. What is one small piece of advice you would leave with them at the end of this conversation, so they can move forward in that direction? Maybe they're just getting started as a couple and they're saying, "This is where I want to go." What's one piece of advice you'd leave with them?
Be consistent. Be consistent. Just know that if you don't take your eye off of the eventual goal that you want, or off the prize, or off the vision that you have, and you're consistent, and that means don't pull money out of your 401k. That
uh,
means protecting your savings account. That means being persistent until you're free of that debt. I know it doesn't happen overnight, but if you're consistent with your actions, you will see the result that you want. And the same with your kids. Your kids will see that consistency. They have to see you over time doing the same things and eventually seeing that progress. And I think it's also okay to share that progress with your kids. There were a few pivotal moments in our life where we shared, we're out of debt, guys. And they were, 2 and 6 or something. They were young at the time, but it was exciting for us. And we shared that. Or we shared, okay, we're moving and we're buying this house. And guess what? This is what, you know what I mean? Like, this is what it costs. And then when we reach some financial milestones, we share that with our kids again, and how you handle each one of those wins, or how you let them know that consistency pays off. When they see that in you, then they can believe that it's true for themselves as well.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I'll say one thing. Don't major on the minors.
Yeah.
We make such a big deal about so many small things. And if you really just focus on the big things that matter, that will put you on the road to progress. So focus on the things that really matter, and don't let all these little things that become distractions or speed bumps get you off your road, but stay focused on the things that really matter. So
I love that. You guys are hitting me at the right time with this advice. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Speaking of great advice that you guys can hear on a weekly basis, tell us about your new podcast and where people can listen to it and what it's called.
Yeah. So our podcast is called For Better and Worth. We don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you build your net worth. And so we talk about our journey, our missteps, but also the ways that you can, just gain a little bit of insight and encouragement on your journey to whatever financial freedom looks like for you, as well as to make sure that you have a lasting and happy relationship too.
For Better and Worth. Check it out right now in your favorite podcast player.
thanks for having us, Andy.
It was a pleasure.